as well as like the cooperative difference, because we are really focused on both the workers and the dignity of the workers, but also the dignity of the people and families that we are supporting, right? So we're gonna go through how we should think about aging, examples from the Blue Zones Project, which some of you might be familiar with, rethinking myths about aging, 2 inspirations from Berlin, an example from Courage, and the Filipino Workers Center, and a group brainstorming activity that we'll do together. So first of all, the Blue Zones Project actually looked at different regions where people were living longer in general. And even though they were in very different places, from Loma Linda, California, to Okinawa, Japan, to Icaria, Greece, Sardinia, Italy, Nicoya, Costa Rica, very different places, they actually had some characteristics that were in common, that they were these places that were home to some of the oldest and healthiest people in the world, because it's not just that they were living longer, but actually that they were living longer with an amazing quality of life as well. And they have different lifestyles, but share 9 principles. One is that they would move naturally. So they weren't like bodybuilders or like, extreme marathon runners, but they were in, their lifestyles were that they were moving a lot, that they would naturally move, walk. They didn't have a lot of technology and mechanisms, to make life so easy. There's just the lifestyle. They're in the gardens, they're walking, their daily lives involved moving naturally. And that they know their purpose. So there's Plan de Vida in Nicoya, and another phrase that I'm forgetting from Okinawa, which basically translates to, I know why I'm waking up in the morning, like the purpose of their life. And so they actually have processes and concepts that they live by that really defines purpose for them personally. And then downshift. So downshifting means, like, in these places and these individuals, they had stress in their lives, but they had ways to downshift regularly. Practices in their daily lives that allow them to de-stress. From praying in Sardinia, from taking naps in Sardinia. It was like nap time to de-stress. There was praying, there was meditation, there was different things that they did on a regular basis, day to day, to de-stress. The 80% rule was that they would eat until they're only 80% full. And there's actual, like a prayer in Okinawa that I would say before eating that would remind them of that, for example, that they're not eating till they're full, only until 80%. And actually very interestingly, it's like that they would also mostly eat just until, like, most of them have light early dinners and then they don't eat anymore after that also. Plant slant means also diet. So diet is like, their diets would be plant heavy. So especially with beans, soybeans, lentils, and grains made up the most of their bulk of their diet. Interestingly, most of them also have meat, but it's pork and it's not a lot. And then Friends at 5 is also sometimes called Wine at 5, because basically they would spend some time, like, in moderation, drinking wine with their friends at 5, or, so it's like that social aspect with food. And then positive pact. So basically, different behaviors are contagious. And so who is in your pack really makes a difference. So they would tend to have circles, tight circles of friends who also have healthy lifestyles. So things like smoking, happiness, and loneliness are all contagious. So if that's in your circles, depending what's in your circles, it multiplies in your circles in terms of who you're with. Belong. Also, overwhelming amount of these folks actually belong to a faith institution where they would regulate, so they had a community, a set community to belong to. And then finally, loved ones first. They had really tight, close family networks from, parents, children, grandchildren, siblings, that they have tight friendships. So this is what they learned from the blue zones, and even like how much it adds on to each of their lives. And because it's tied to not just the longevity, but again, the quality of life. And I think that's also what really is important to us, because we are supporting quality of life. And these are some of the things that are really contributing to quality life and longevity. Next slide. So we have these myths about aging, right? That especially in this society are so negative about age, that aging is so bad in some way, that we're just gonna cognitively decline, automatic memory loss, depression, unhappiness, anxiety, loss of physical ability, that we're gonna have pain, that we're gonna have loss of value and importance. And this does happen, but it's not actually like fate. This is not what has to happen, and this is not what always happens in as we get older, right? But there is this framework of negativity around aging. But actually, what researchers have found is that older people have fewer negative emotions and just as much happiness, joy, and calm as younger people. Older people are happier actually in their day-to-day lives on balance than younger people, right? So this is something that we also as a culture and ourselves have to reframe how we think about aging. I think it's also how we think about disability as well, that often, especially from the outside, we always just think of it as something negative and a burden, right? But there can be so much joy, there can be so much relationships, that's we need to really recognize like the fullness of life that we can have in all different stages, and especially as we age. So we need to reframe how we think about aging, right? How can we think about aging, or how we think about aging can impact our own health and happiness as we age. Cultivating more positive age beliefs can improve quality of life for ourselves and our loved ones. And this is something we can do for ourselves and our clients as well, right? As we reframe how we think and interact with our clients and their families. So Becca Levy is a researcher and author who said, I found that older people with more positive perception of aging perform better physically and cognitively than those with more negative perceptions. They were more likely to recover from severe disability. They remembered better, they walked faster, and they even lived longer. This is actually what the research shows, right? And who are we, right? We are home care givers, home care workers, right? That can really impact all of this. So I was inspired, I got to go on a trip with Andrea to Berlin. And we got exposed to a bunch of different organizations and models in Berlin, and there was two that were particularly inspirational to myself. So one is Domino Coaching, Domino Care. So this is actually a company that they call their home care coaching because the way that they've reframed how they understand aging, it's not just about like, once you're aging, you're just declining. The understanding of how we understand the brain is the brain can always regenerate new connections and right and new cells, and that we can always continue to improve and grow no matter our stage in our life. So the domino coaching approach is that we're not just here just to support the basics and just like be living and keeping our clients alive, but it's actually how you can impact someone and improve that quality of life on a regular day-to-day basis. So including like, and I know there are folks that are already doing this, but like including plans, they do assessments and goals together with the individual about what they want. Like there may be mobility goals, there may be social goals, there may be cognitive goals, and putting together a plan of activities, of exercise, of interacting, you know, together throughout the day, right? And through their program, so that, you know, so someone who actually like suffers like, you know, a fall, you know, and it's a real setback in mobility, like maybe at one time you used to go walk down and get the mail and come back, but because of that setback, they stopped doing it, right? So it may be the goal to get mobile again, rebuild, you know, so that you would do exercises, you know, you would build towards that goal. They also, because they do have facilities, and part of their goal is like, if that person wants to get back out into their own home and community, they have goals to build what they need in terms of like physical and cognitive capability to get back out in the community with support. And what they found was that since they implemented this, both the quality of life and satisfaction of the clients, the people that they were supporting, were very, very high, so many awards, but also the quality of life and satisfaction of their own home care workers was also super high, and really, so much higher than the rest of the sector. So because they're also making such an impact, you know, and they could see and feel the impact and the dignity, you know, that they're helping to support. So they actually have trainings that go 6 months to become one of their domino coaches. And then there is House of the Future. And House of the Future is actually this place that you can go into and see all different types of like adaptive equipment and different design ideas, to think about like for an individual, what are the things that are really important to them in terms of independent living or quality of life? Like there may be people that just really like love to bake, but they just can't bend over anymore to like bake. So maybe there's a design solution for that you can actually shift the oven to be higher, you know, and you know, that will allow that to still happen. Feeding, right? Feeding yourself is one big sore point. If you can't feed yourself anymore, how that feels, right? You know, in terms of that loss of independence. So thinking about ways that, you know, if someone doesn't have the ability to bend their wrists anymore, it's really hard to feed themselves. But if you can just get the adaptive tools, that has the bend in it, they can still feed themselves. There's tables that have they're stable with kind of like a decorative bar around it so that they can actually pull themselves up, you know, and don't have to, you know. So it's just like different things you can do in design to create more independence. It doesn't do away with the need of like home care support, but it's actually about the quality of life of how they're able to move through their days and do different things, you know, and this is how I want to be when I'm, you know, when I'm growing older, and, you know, to be able to do as much as I can independently, right? And so why these were so inspirational to me is like, I think these are concepts and things that we can incorporate to what we're doing in our cooperatives that would really make us stand out from other home care agencies, for example. And because this is so aligned with our values, right? Whenever I talk to other people about this, especially who are dealing with their own personal issues of aging, like people break down and cry because like the issues of being independent, right, is just so, just so personal and so important. So if we can be there to be able to help them, not only in the basics, but also in the quality of life, then, that's something that will both make us stand out, but also uplift what we do, and, I don't know. Anyways, you know what I mean.
Yes.
So I wanted to share one story also that just came from our own community. This is actually just a little bit pre-Courage, but one of our members, caregivers, one thing that she did on her own initiative with her client. So her client used to go to like charity balls and stuff, and had a closet full of ball gowns and dresses. So much fancier than this picture, but so what she would do is on a weekly basis, they would go in and pick out one of those dresses, and then her client would tell her the story of what happened, when she wore that dress. And then she would get dressed up in it, they would do her hair, and they would dance. And just like, so doing things like that, that's one example of how we can really impact. And wouldn't that be more enjoyable also in terms of what you're doing, the work that you're doing day to day, to impact and really share, because it's the value, having all of the value of the stories, right? The stories, being able to share the stories and experience, it depends on, who you're with, but there's always things that you can do to make a connection, to add to the quality of life. Okay, so now we're going to break down, and so you have your groups at your tables, and I want to break down so that we can have a little bit of a discussion. At your tables, if you can talk about how can we reimagine the future of aging at our cooperatives? How can we implement more positive age beliefs? What actions could we take? And how does this feel for you? How does this hit you? And then if you can just choose a volunteer to report back. So right now we are at what time? We are at 4:30. 4:30. Okay. So we're gonna have and we go to 4:50. So 10 minutes to talk amongst yourselves and go.
Ready, team, three. I turned my head. I got a sticker on my forehead. No, we talked about board members, or we talked about our clientele. I wouldn't. Give me clarification. Right, exactly. So what should be mandatory? You don't now look at it works as my criteria for the age. And I do.
I know, right?
You don't. I do. That's hilarious. You can't do nothing. Like what we talked about in 30 years. How did your parents feel about it?
Most of them have very positive outlooks on it. Yeah. The only negative thing that I think that probably impacts it is more health partners. And like not wanting to be lonely. And so they do talk about that stuff. So I really encourage that I'm alone. You're right here. You can call me, and we can do stuff together that they enjoy. Like one just loves going around and looking at these cars, or and so like we'll look at cars and we talk about all these cars and drawings, and so that's one thing. And then the other person is more spiritual and afraid of dying alone and not
Right, and the training.
so we work on that all the time. Reimagine what that is. It's beautiful. Yeah.
Well, I know how you talk about it. One doesn't believe he's old. So that's why he's like, he's like, I don't want to. And I'm like, your dog. I'm like, this girl is so hard. But he's back herself all the life. That's all I watch was her. They're music outside movies, and he's like telling me all about the prices in the parking lot. I'm not taking a Dodge. Yeah. He lives on his own still and cared about his parents and they make stuff, but so involved with it.
Like I think it's fine for that, but like finding out.
Yeah, he's got quail, he's got rabbits, he's got the rabbits are outside. The snakes are inside the house. He got out actually. I was on there for like 2 days because I was so scared to see him. He was so scared. He was like, and it's every time. Have you ever felt the legend?
Yeah.
I love those examples because I remember participating in an exercise about envisioning how you would like to live in the later years of your life, and it really caused me to reflect on what is it that brings me to me now as I live, and am I seeking those things out? And the piece around learning and growth does not stop after you're out of school, whatever, that continues adulthood and later
And
years.
I don't
So
believe that like just
I love this piece around
it's a mindset you
you
want
would
to
support in this relationship to pose those questions
It's like
that
really
you are
private.
learning
They're even on their team. I really just feel like if you don't want to go for a walk, bring them to the river, bring them to the park. So you can still hear the noise, so you can, just try to do the baby stuff. So it's very like, we're dancing, like, but like people are trying to what about the people who are taking what about family members, who might be in that story.
Myself on my own some way I want to be
You don't want it to go on. You don't want it to be you don't want it to be like you are taking care of them, you're not. You're assisting them to find their children. No, that's how it's like they still absolutely, they still
And it's really
I have a client that has a stroke, and right now we're looking at and it's still, he's still thinking of it, and he hasn't really gone very well because he's doing it at the time. He's trying to hold him in a watch time. So just kind of, just the biggest thing is to build that confidence, to get that self-confidence, to realize you still have talent, you still in you, you just gotta find a way to do it, or, even tell someone, hey, I want this to look this way, or I want to paint this out, I want to paint gray, you paint it gray for them, what color do you want the eyes, so, yeah, in every aspect, whether it's garbage, whether it's art, whatever, to bring out
What are your guys' styles? My favorite is but if you were to try to change their mind, if you could change their mind.
Maybe about that.
But even like, I love that like cheap types that should influence kind of mindsets like changes. So that we're already building like a community, already building the we live in an individualized society and service co-ops in our families. That's important.
But not only can you build connections, but also finding
But it's not just about the part of it, it's about our family, it's about our lives outside of it. Can we create the same environment outside of it?
They slept on the floor, they ate on the floor, so they had better balance, so they could calm down their food. Because they were getting up every day on the floor, up in the bed, and they had they're more grounded. I mean, somebody getting up on the couch is like, oh my God, what do you do? They need to strengthen those muscles, not necessarily healthy.
We don't get down low enough to like actually build a lot.
No, exactly, and that was one of the things, not just knowing one of the brands and all that other kind of stuff. One of the big things was, it was like Greek food. They did a lot of organic or a lot more walking.
I implemented that in my family. Everything's down on the ground. So I have to get all the way down.
I'm not going to help them unless it's
Not just picking up
reflections about as you're thinking about putting more emotion.
Just in case you fell backwards, so I could catch her on my leg. It was just an instinctual thing, because I wanted somebody who didn't fall backwards,
It sounds like the coach.
I'm not going to help them.
Right at the beginning? Okay, sorry about
But it's been
that.
a while.
Coaching and teaching the kids.
Thanks.
Especially if they're not asking for help.
A lot of names and faces, new media.
We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. All right, how are your discussions? We want to hear from you. What do you think? Let's go around. Who wants to share? How can we reimagine the future of aging in our own cooperative? How can we implement more positive age beliefs? What actions would that take? Who wants to share? Who wants to go first? I don't. Oh, we got back here.
Leo?
Okay, everyone, I have a very hard time answering the question. I can never reimagine aging. Aging is aging. Somebody is 45, I cannot say they're going to be 30. So how do I reimagine it? For some reason, in this country, people is afraid of aging. So am I going to tell a 90 years old, watch 50? I'm sorry, so I got to come up with a plan to actually help them become, comfortable. That's the goal, right? So I got to create some way to help them. And it's very, very hard. I couldn't answer the question. I have no
Well,
idea how
so
to
maybe part of the question is like, 90 is 90, but what is your concept of 90?
My grandmother.
Well, that's, who is your grandma? What does that mean to you then?
That means she is a very, very important person. She is the patriarchy of my family. So my grandmother, we have something in Africa called griot. A griot is a very important person. And the story is passed down from family to family. It's not written. So if a griot dies, then you bring down a library. So I'm not going to reimagine a griot to be, it's just here I get it, but
It's not that you're thinking that there's something they're not. It's not that aging doesn't happen, that so it's not that you're trying to make the person that you're thinking of, your grandma, something else. But it's actually how you understand your own grandmother's experience, what it is or what it could be. So do you think of, because in a way, where you come from has a different framework already about aging. So which is maybe why you're having trouble reframing, because you're already coming from more what we've been talking about in terms of the value and the understanding of like experience importance and all of that, and how as your grandma's getting older, she's just even more and more valuable to you, right?
yes.
So yes, but that is not necessarily how everyone thinks about it, especially in this country,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
I'm not a caregiver, but these three amazing ladies talked about their aging clients and how they interact with them. And basically what they do is they meet them where they are. They don't treat them like they're old or infirm or dying. They treat them like human beings who want to dance, wash their hair, go shopping, go to a movie, have a companion. They recognize that I'm here to find joy. So that last bullet, how does it feel for them? They all talked about how when they interact with their clients and they dance with them and they see the smile on their face, there's joy. And so it's not trying to make them be younger, it's recognizing they're 96. But that 96-year-old can wash her own hair in the bathtub, and all you have to do is make sure she doesn't fall in. But allowing her to be herself and enjoy her life and finding that joy there.
And are we including these kinds of things in our training? We have supporting activities of daily life. Do we have supporting activities of daily joy? I don't know.
In our group, we also talked a little bit about what that looks like, right? Like it's reimagining aging. And I think like conceptually, like in the framework, like when you think of someone aging like 90 or like 100, there's almost like perceptions of limitations with that. Like a 90-year-old can't walk or can't run or they can't brush their teeth. And we talk about this concept of how often, because loved ones are coming from a space of care, and like, as you mentioned, as they become older, they become valuable because it's someone that has, has a pivotal role in their families. But often that also creates and eludes this idea of like, we need to take care of them, so they need to do less. Like, they should just sit down at home, like do the less activities, we should do everything for them. But alternatively though, like that doesn't really constitute to their happiness and to like the blue zones, right? Like I think like the daily life, and I think what we talked about in our group is like, I think how we kind of reimagine and reframe of how we look like aging is that we give them liberty to tell us what they need and we're there to support them, rather than dictating what their limitations are and setting that for them. And so I think it's like giving liberty to folks that like, if they want to brush their teeth at 60 and they think they can do that, let them do that, but maybe standing behind them in case they fall, right? And so I think it's like shifting the liberty to the person receiving care rather than like creating the limitations for them of what they can do.
Just to bring on that, I mean, there's also, what I heard when we were at the table is there's also the opportunity for educating the family and getting the family to also understand how important it is for this person to be able to continue to be as independent as possible.
Right, because if you just, you shouldn't do that, you need to sit down, let us do that for you. And then if you're not walking and you're not using your body, you lose its functionality, right? Who else would like to go?
We talked about a lot of things, and a lot of the issues were similar, we're just trying to do a little different vocabulary with that.
I'm sorry, can you say that one more time?
We use the same vocabulary, or we use the same ideas, but just a little bit different wording on it. So we let them pick their own things. We do more person-centered. So if a person was a farmer, if a person used to live on a lake, we would bring them to the river, or if they can't walk, we would just bring them there so they can hear the sounds and the noises. Kind of like the example with the dresses. We just find out what those person's things are and what we can do to inspire that just in kind of a little bit. We also talked about nutrition being a big need, an example, and maybe they want to go to a community garden and get a plot. Maybe they want to participate in just vegetable sharing or a vegetable co-op, kind of a food share type of situation, or actually get in there and put some weeds or plant some seeds. So there was a lot of different kind of things, the activities, and I think that was a big thing of just getting them out there, getting them to do things that they are interested in. And if those abilities decline like a painter, well then paint a picture for them and ask them what colors they would like. What color do you want the eyes, or what color do you want that, or even use technology to let them push, and paint things themselves, those kind of things. We also talked about a little bit of the community interaction, get them affiliated with other places or VFWs, community centers, those kind of places. Maybe even volunteers. If they're lonely, then see if there's some volunteers or some other thing. Maybe they can be in a different living space, possibly. We also talked about self-actualization. So let them know, or help them to find out what they would like, not decide for them. Well, if they're a farmer, well, maybe they want to go pet a cow and have a horse. Maybe not. Maybe they don't want to have that at all anymore. Maybe they do, but it's for them to decide what they want. But it's for you to encourage that and to get them to that level where they accept that they're comfortable with. And always be prepared. Always be prepared for, like I was saying here, if someone's walking up the steps, walk behind them so they can set the pace. And in case they do stumble or in case they do fall, be right there to pick them up.
Person-centered, but also focused on ability, not just what they can't do, but what you're able to do. You're next.
Okay, well, one of ours was multi-generational care. So having like younger kids, because we're always needing child care in our cooperatives, get with the older generation and kind of intermingle with both of them. And so they can help one another, whether it be a child sitting in the lap being told a story. That helps both people. And you're solving really 3 or 4 different situations in one. Another was, let's see, seeing what the people like. You know, I know a couple people mentioned it, but we also mentioned like music. You know, it's different for each generation, so see what they used to listen to and play some of that. It may brighten up their attitudes and dispositions during the day. Another thing that we have tables to go to is trying to help with their own independence and doing hobbies that, you know, different things in the house. Yeah, we also mentioned like making cooking easier, like raising the stove up higher because you can't get into that oven because it's so low, or a washer and dryer, for example. So, or just a few examples.
Love that. Love that. So I think we have the time for one more, right? And then, because it's still 4:15, or is it? 4:55. Oh, great. Well, then we have a couple more minutes.
All right, I'm representing my group here. So yeah, I think what was interesting was that really we just got into sharing a lot of stories about how our cooperatives are already doing this. You know, similar example about, you know, somebody really loves music, bringing, you know, playing music. Somebody really loves baking, but, you know, maybe has actually had some cognitive decline. What can they do so that they're still enjoying that activity and feeling a part of it? Charles shared a great example about helping, you know, somebody sort of pushing out the apples, you know, as like part of baking pie. So I think the thing that I was really sitting with, based on what I was hearing from our group, was that actually, it's not that we need to redefine aging, because it seems like our cooperatives already have redefined aging and what it means to care for people, but we need to help other people reimagine caring, and importantly, we need to communicate that our cooperatives are doing this, because this is a huge value add. This is what I would certainly want for my parents, but I don't know that people know that you're doing this. So little plug for, you know, marketing and getting out there. I did also want to highlight, in our group, we talked about caring for our caregivers also, and unique programs that cooperatives could potentially put in place as their caregivers retire. What can the cooperatives do to care for them? You know, making sure that kind of you're returning that. And maybe it's also even volunteer opportunities for those caregivers who still want to give back and to be companions. So thinking creatively about the full life cycle of our caregivers as well.
Anyone else? Anyone else? You have it. Okay, over here. I'll come over here.
I think as boards, when we get training with our members, we need to teach them that these are humans, that these are adults, that these aren't babies. And maybe somebody got the job because they said, oh, I helped take care of my grandma that had dementia. But then you look at her doing everything for the person. And yeah, like somebody said, we don't want to do everything for them, and we want to encourage them to be as independent as possible. And even if a person has severe dementia, they still have stories, and they're still interesting. I have this one little lady who loves to dance, and I swear, when she shows me what to do, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's so sexy. She's so cute, and we need to go home and we need to talk to our friends with positive things, not with the, oops, somebody had an accident, I cleaned up diarrhea today. More with the cute, oh my gosh, my little lady, when she does her Latin dancing, my goodness.
Is there anyone else who wants to share? You know, I think, oh, yes.
As I was listening to so many folks, I started thinking about elders that are experiencing social isolation and have for a long, long time. And they have been disconnected by way of some circumstance in their life from people that were deeply invested in their well-being, whether that was not having a lot of friends, not having children that they have those close relationships with. And one of the things that I've experienced, you know, recently is helping some of those elders explore what this season of their life could be, because no one has asked them what they like to do, so they don't know how to answer that question. and just sitting with them and being patient with them and helping them say, like, well, of this array of options, would you be interested in trying each of them? Right? And helping them pace themselves through exploration, because it's just such a hard and challenging thing to be asked questions and to feel shame because you don't know what you like.
I love that because it's also then how do we reframe like there's opportunity, right? To do even new things you don't know, and that's fine, that's great, you know. And how can we help support people to find, you know, new things or old things, or and make new connections. You know, I think it's so spot on what you said, Katrina, in terms of like so much of this is already within our co-ops, right? But how do we actually elevate this to a different level in our co-ops? How do we actually weave it in a very intentional way of how we train and uplift and, you know, the work that we're doing within our co-ops? How do we articulate it in terms of how we market and really show what, you know, all of these amazing stories, you know? And it's not an automatic given that just because someone has cared for a loved one, that it was necessarily in the best way or the best way for everyone, you know, in terms of how we do it. What are the best practices from all of the different things that we're doing that we can help to train people in, like to do a kind of like tools for helping people to figure out, you know, what might get them excited and what things that they might want to explore. How do we help to put together trainings also that, you know, that are grounded in like real best practices of like best ways to actually, like, if they're dealing with mobility and certain things, like these are the best exercises to do to, like, you know, like really address them. I think also just a plug for Elevate, that's a community where we could also be sharing different stories and practices and tools as well to be able to do this. And this we have, like, our country is aging, the demographic is shifting. So, like, the numbers of individuals that we have that are 65 and older are like growing exponentially. And so this is something that we want, everyone's got a story, you know, everyone's got a care story. And to be able to bring this kind of knowledge and inspiration with us as we are operating and meeting people and marketing and onboarding clients, like having this kind of outlook and hope throughout our processes, even onboarding and stuff, how we also support families and educate families to also shift how they're thinking about things. This could be something that really makes us stand out and also can be a part of how we grow as a whole sector as well. All right, well, thank you everyone for all of your
Thank you, Aki. I'm going to invite you right back up here in just a second. So we've come to our very last half hour of the conference. Oh, yes.